Rosanne, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jamie.
Yay. I'm so excited to have you on. We've already had a full podcast before we even started recording. And Rosanne is here to share her story at 44. But before we get started, if nobody knows who you are, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Rosanne Austin. I'm a creator of the Fearlessly Fertile Method. So today I am helping women all over the world who are struggling to get and stay pregnant by helping them leverage the power of the mind-body connection. Now, you may ask yourself, well, how does somebody get there? Well, the other part of my story is I was a prosecutor in California and I was prosecuting sex crimes for a very long time. And it was during that time that my husband and I decided that we wanted to have a family. And back in the day, Jamie, I was a lovably type A control freaky professional, trial attorney, an assassin in the courtroom, if you will. That it was the reputation that I had earned because I loved being in trial and I loved advocating for victims of sexual assault, both children and adults. And I was just going through my career, just figuring, okay, we're going to find the right time to have a baby. And I was already in my mid to late 30s. And it became very clear quickly that things weren't working the way that we thought. My husband and I figured, okay, we're going to start trying and I'll be pregnant by May. I have a big trial in June and all of, that it would happen in this sequential way that, those of us that are ambitious and really career oriented, we're trying to check all the boxes. Well, the universe sent me a 1-2 punch in a really unexpected way because I was trying and it wasn't working. And so the go-getter in me said, okay, I'm not even going to bother with my OBGYN. I'm going to go straight to a fertility clinic
Oh,
because
wow.
I need, I had talked to my OBGYN. She was like, you're close to 40. It's going to be hard. And I really took that to heart. Like I was very shocked. I was relatively young at the time and I was reasonably healthy, what I thought was healthy. I was active. I ate reasonably clean. I didn't feel old. That was the first time that I ever really came up against this alleged timeline. And I say alleged because I actually don't believe that anymore at all. Having helped women from ages 28 to 54 get pregnant, it kind of created a mind virus in my head because then I started to panic. And when I went to the fertility clinic, it only got worse because it was like, how old are you? How long have you been trying? Oh, yeah, you do need IVF. Like I was never encouraged at that, at any point in time by any of the providers that I was seeing to look at other possible things. Like I hadn't even had my thyroid checked,
Oh, my
Jamie. Like
gosh.
nobody was doing, when this was 1,000 years ago. So I suspect that some things have changed, but I mean, I coach women now and I realize that, as much as things may have changed, there are still many things that have not.
Hmm.
And I was working, and the thing that I wasn't looking at was the fact that I was working sometimes 60, 80-hour weeks in trial. I was waking up in the middle of the night to go to forensic interviews for survivors of sexual assault as a prosecutor. They would wake me up in the middle of the night. If there was a major crime that happened, I would have to show up. You know, so I wasn't taking any of that into account, and neither were the people that were supposedly providing me with care. Everyone said, oh, yeah, stress has nothing to do with it. You just need to do IVF. So I was terrified at that point. And so without doing any IUIs, I wasn't doing anything in the interim, no letrozole, no Clomid, like nothing.
Hmm.
I just went from wanting to have a baby and having tried naturally for about 6 months into IVF.
Yeah.
There was no in between. And it's no surprise that that was one of the most devastating experiences I had ever had.
Yeah. And how old were you at this time?
So at that time, I was about 37.
Okay.
I wasn't really that old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was shocking because I didn't know anything. Like I'm very humbled, Jamie, at what little I knew. I mean, I knew a little bit about the reproductive system. I mean, I was a sex assault prosecutor, so I knew the parts and I knew all this stuff and I knew generally speaking what women knew, but I knew nothing about follicle counts. I knew nothing about tracking my cycle. I knew nothing about cervical mucus. I didn't know anything about anything.
Uh-huh.
And I felt immediately overwhelmed
Yeah.
because look, I'm a highly educated woman and I was walking into a world that I was not prepared for at all. So I was like, what is happening right now? How did I get here? And then all of a sudden, I was pulling out my credit card, buying $6,000 worth of medications. I was, paying for the IVF, and like that was back in the day. And I don't know if California even covers it, but my insurance did not cover it, which I wasn't mad about. I was like, this is what I want. I'm not expecting anybody to pay for it but me. But it was the first time outside of law school that I had ever spent that much money. I
Uh-huh.
was like, oh my gosh, like here's 25,000 on this thing. And I was like, and I was still under the impression that IVF was a guarantee.
Right.
I figured, oh, I'm doing all this medication and I'm going to this doctor and they're gonna pull eggs out of me and then they're gonna transfer them on this day and boom, I'll be pregnant.
Yeah.
Well, needless to say, not only in that cycle did I come out with like a crazy fever, the cycle didn't work. I had put all of my hope on this
Mm-hmm.
one cycle, and it was like I was hit in the face with a 2x4. Like I was like, this is the first time in my life, and I don't say this with hubris. I say this with humility because I'm a hard worker. I was like, this is the first time in my life where I gave it my all, or at least what I thought was my all at the
Mm-hmm.
time, and it didn't work because
Mm-hmm.
I was used to having a more direct correlation between how hard I work, Jamie, and
Yes.
the outcome. Because nobody could outwork me in the courthouse. Nobody was going to outwork me in the courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
I just had this history of success because I was willing to do the work. And this was a very devastating failure because I thought to myself, wow, this is the first time I could not outwork a challenge.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do. So I started to scour the internet. I was like, wait a minute. I'm not a quitter. I'm not a loser. All of this stuff
Mm-hmm.
that was in my head and started to frantically look.
Like you're looking for answers.
Answers, alternatives. I was up at 3 a.m. My eyes were practically bleeding from all of the research. And don't get a female attorney on the research train, okay? Like,
It's never
you know,
ending.
yeah, no, I mean it was crazy. And I literally over the course of several years gained what I think would be the equivalent of a specialty in reproductive endocrinology because I there wasn't anything I wouldn't research, there wasn't anything I would look into. So, and the other crazy thing that was going on at the time was there was so much shame and secrecy around seeking fertility treatment that I later found out there were other women in my office, but nobody was talking about it that were going and getting
No.
fertility treatment. And what was happening is women were just disappearing from the office and never telling anyone, and nor should they have to, right? Like, I'm not suggesting that you
Sure.
have to spill your guts to anybody, but there was so much shame amongst the women because two things. Number one, if they found out that you were trying to have a baby, people were afraid they were going to lose their trial assignments
Mm-hmm.
because then you're not going to get as good of the, cases because everyone thinks you're going to go out on maternity leave, which is really crazy in the 2000s. Like, how does this even happen? But that was the culture at the
Mm-hmm.
time. And then the second thing was so it's like the risk of losing a great position, but it was also the shame. And like, there's something wrong with me. Like, we're in the courthouse, we see crackheads coming in with 5 kids, and we're the ones that are like trying so hard. And I don't mean that from like a super judgmental standpoint. It's really just an indicator of how much pain I was in. I know later on that the other women were in, that we ended up comparing ourselves to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So not only is it this devastating thing to your sense of accomplishment, but it was also like, man, can I even trust my body? If crackheads can do it and they're on crack and I'm eating clean and seeing doctors, how is it that I'm not able to do this?
Yeah.
Is there something wrong with me?
Yeah.
And like I had never experienced depression before. And I don't think I was even at that time depressed. I think I was just, I had the paradigm of what I thought of myself, what I thought was possible for me, and all that I believed about the world was coming into question.
Uh-huh.
Was I going to be in a position where here, my husband and I, we love each other dearly. We're so excited to be a family. What if that doesn't happen?
Mm-hmm.
And what if I can't make it happen?
Yeah. Because I feel like you're someone that goes after what you want and you feel like you're failing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I was. And so I, in the process of starting to look at alternatives, so because I went bonkers, I started driving hundreds of miles a week to go to a celebrity acupuncturist because I thought that was going to help me get pregnant. I was doing Chinese herbs, like there was like a tiny skull and crossbones on the bottle. I couldn't read it. It was in, you know, whichever Chinese language it was, and but I was doing everything, and I was even doing some insane things, Jamie. So I started vaginal steaming. I'm
What
like,
is
what
that?
am I doing? Like,
Tell
so
us what that is.
basically, yeah, so basically my understanding of it, and I'm not professing to be an expert, but I did it enough times to know. I had gone to this like medicine woman who told me that my real problem was I didn't have enough herbs in my vagina. Like I didn't have like, yeah, I know that's insane. It like there was something that the herbs could cure. And so I was boiling water, cleaning out my toilet. Like this is back in the day. I think they have machines that do it now, but like you clean out your toilet meticulously, you place the bowl into the toilet, and then you sit on the toilet so that the steam is literally like the steam with the herbal tea in it is getting to your lady bits. And I did that. And you should have seen my husband's face. Like, he was like, what's that? And I'm like, get out. I'm doing my steaming. And so I'd be sitting on this toilet with a blanket wrapped around the bottom of it so that you don't let any of the steam out
Sure.
for like 20 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And I do remember quite a few times, Jamie, thinking to myself, how did I get here? Like, is this really my life? Like I'm giving myself Lupron shots in the morning, going to court, going to an autopsy, and then I come home to steam my vagina. Like, I mean, it's this radical insanity that I found myself living in. Now, that's not the worst of it. I actually had gone crazy enough to have my acupuncturist tell me that the real reason I wasn't getting pregnant was because I wasn't drinking enough black chicken broth. And so what that meant was is I had to go to a specific poultry shop in Chinatown to get a black chicken and boil it, and I needed to be drinking that broth. And so just so you know, this was a black chicken that still had its head and claws on. So I had to put the whole thing in the pot. My husband would get home, and my husband is now a retired police officer. So he'd come in his uniform and look and see like a claw sticking out of this massive pot, and he'd just shake his head and run away. Like, so this was the kind of insanity that I had descended into. I was driving hundreds of miles, boiling black chicken, steaming my vagina. We even put an African fertility doll, which is that doll you can see behind me,
Oh,
under our bed for 7 years. Like there was nothing that I wouldn't do, say, try, or, look into. I had mediums doing, medical intuitive readings on me, like at a distance over the phone. There was nothing I wouldn't do. And it got to the point where I had to ask myself, what's missing here? I know that I'm doing a lot of crazy things. but what is missing? And what I realized, that the piece that was missing for me in my experience as I went through multiple rounds of IVF, we changed doctors. I went to a top 10 teaching hospital in the San Francisco Bay Area. We were sparing no expense, Jamie. There was no, if somebody told me it could help, I was doing it. I think I was even putting royal jelly on my skin. Like, I don't like it was nuts. And I realized it was me. I was missing. Like, because the whole time I was torturing myself, I was telling myself, look at all this money you're spending. Like, look at you. Like, you're taken away from your future. You're draining your bank account. Your husband's stressed out. Like, I was putting all of this pressure on myself and I was hating my body. Like, look at
Mm-hmm.
you. You've not, from all of these IVFs, you're gaining weight. Your pants don't fit. How are you going to go into court? Like, it was just this mess. So I had been doing, all the treatments, diets, lotions, potions, yoga poses. I was doing everything except taking care of the mess that was between my ears.
Mm-hmm.
So then I realized, I'm like, okay, I need to clean up this mess because we're going to transfer the last of my embryos and I need to be better. So I really buckled down and I started to change the way I thought about myself. I scoured books and seminars and everything that I could learn about brain science. And people were not acknowledging back then the power of the mind body connection. You might hear about it in cancer patients and people with other chronic diseases, but nobody was really talking about it in the context of fertility. And I found a book called Love, Medicine, and Miracles by Dr. Bernie Siegel, who was a surgeon. He's in his late 80s now, almost
Uh-huh.
90. And it was a New York Times bestseller. And I was starting to read, and I was like, gosh, there's something to this. Like, our head is connected to our body with our neck. Okay. Like, this is a
Uh-huh.
closed system. It's not, and I found so much of what was happening was splitting me into parts, my uterus, my ovaries, my eggs, and, my hypothalamus. Like, it was all this stuff, but never really seeing myself as a whole. So I started to change the way I thought about myself. And I'm like, look, I am tormenting my body. I'm telling her she's fat and she's useless and old and broken down. Like, how is she going to do me a favor? Like, would
Mm-hmm.
would your best friend keep doing you a favor if that's what you called her?
Right.
No. She'd tell you to F off. And so I changed that story and I did it consistently in preparation for our last transfer. And I finally got pregnant.
On your last
Now, I
transfer.
on my last transfer now, but wait, I didn't carry that pregnancy to term, but nothing else was different, Jamie, but me.
Uh-huh.
So I said to myself, okay, all right, I know I didn't just get lucky here. I know that for a fact because everything else was the same. And I ended up having a miscarriage on Christmas Day
Ugh.
in emergency room number 13. You cannot make this up.
Wow.
And they wanted to give me a DNC, and I don't know why I didn't want that, but I just was like, I'm like, I don't want that. Like, I don't, if this is going to happen for some reason, Jamie, I can't explain it. I just said, and I don't have any judgment on it. I just said, that's not what I want for myself.
Sure.
And I just remember closing my eyes and saying, this is not how this baby is going to leave me. We're going to leave, this baby is going to leave me at home. I don't know why.
Uh-huh.
It was almost like this other voice came in. And interestingly enough, the ER doc was able to reach my OB. He happened to be on call on Christmas Day. They reached out to him and he said, no, you let her pass this baby naturally. And I was like, what's going on? Like, all of these synchronicities. And so, as strange as it may sound, that miscarriage was a turning point.
Wow. So
on my fertility journey.
did they give a reason why they wanted to do a DNC?
No, let's just put it this way. I think it's because it was more expeditious than trying to figure out what to do with me. Like,
Mm,
am I like I'm not mad at them. I'm so glad that my doctor happened to be on call and like said, "No, no, no, no. You're not gonna let, let her pass this baby naturally." And I'm so glad in that moment that I had a provider that stood up for me
that's
and
great. It's
wasn't,
hard to find.
yeah, yeah, that wasn't rushing me into a procedure because like I said, look, I have got nothing against DNCs and I think that everybody needs to make their choices about that and there are certain risks involved, but there's also risks with passing your pregnancy naturally.
Sure.
But for me personally in that moment, my soul was telling me that wasn't right for me. So everything lined up and they discharged me, they gave me the medication and I went home and had a dark night of the soul. And I made it through that process. It was probably the most pain I've ever been in my life, short of childbirth. But in that moment, I just stayed in my room. It was dark. I turned on Downton Abbey and I didn't leave that room for like a week. And I was in such despair. But what was interesting, Jamie, that I really brought back from that experience is I was super grateful.
Okay.
As weird as that may sound, because that pregnancy confirmed what I suspected
Which was what?
that
Your
the
brain.
desire, well, yes, it was not only that I could have an influence on my outcome. This was not the first, like my son did not come with that pregnancy, but it was for me an affirmation that I was headed in the right direction.
Uh-huh.
So I said, yep, he may not be staying this time, but I know he's coming. And that was pivotal because if I hadn't had that revelation in that moment, I might have gone to a mental hospital because I was like, here I am. I'm years and years older with my last embryos, and this is what happens. I have a miscarriage, right? I could have
Yeah.
totally tortured myself with that. But in that moment, with all of those synchronicities happening and having changed what I believed about myself, it gave me another avenue.
Yeah. And how old
And
were you when the miscarriage
I was
happened?
40.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 40 at that time. And yeah, I
And
think 40, 41. Like, yeah, it's all kind of a blur right
yeah,
now,
I get it.
but it's like, but at that point, my husband and I made a decision we weren't going to do IVF anymore,
Oh, wow. Was that hard
which
for you?
it was no. No, it was really like I can't explain it other than to say there was something in me that knew that the story wasn't over. Now, I'm not going to tell you I wasn't scared out of my wits because at that point, Jamie, I was older. I was older. And how many rounds of IVF did I have? I don't even remember
Yeah.
how many rounds. Because they all sort of blended together.
Hmm.
And I just said to myself, this is not for me. And I'm going to trust myself. I'm going to trust my body. I'm going to trust my baby. Now, did I have any reason on paper to do that? No. But there was something in me that was coming out that I had not seen since I was a little girl, and that was belief.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't explain it. I don't know why I'm doing this. But I decided in that moment that it didn't matter, that yes, I was older. Yes, none of my treatments had worked, but that this was the time for me to believe bigger and I was going to double down on me. So I just kept studying. I studied the, mindset material. There were some lifestyle changes that I made. I left my work at the DA's office. I started teaching other women what I had learned. And the women that I was working with, they were getting pregnant left and right. So I wasn't even pregnant yet. But I
Uh-huh.
said, like, look, if I could help anybody with what I had learned, I'm going to teach them. And left and right, my clients were getting pregnant. And I remember there was a point in time when I just started acting as if my son was here. I would drive back and forth. It was like a 45-minute drive to where my husband worked and our home. I would run errands. I would do different things down there. I was taking on consulting work for other attorneys, So I would drive back and forth and I would literally have conversations with him, acting as if he was in the back of the car, telling him all about the life that dad and I were going to give him, how what a fun and adventurous family we are, and all that. And I just started acting as if he was here. And I remember it was October 2015. I decided that for the next year, I was going to say yes to everything, everything, anything that I wanted to say yes to, because my husband and I had spent so much time, with our life on hold. And we just made the decision we were going to stop putting off vacations. We were going to stop, we're going to stop denying ourselves essentially of the things that really made us feel alive.
Uh,
So October 2015, I made that decision. And by October 2016, I was pregnant naturally.
wow. And I think what is important to note here is that you kept practicing and changing your mind. It didn't just happen overnight after one
Oh no,
time. You had to keep going and going.
it's not a destination, Jamie. Like
Right.
it is a lifestyle. And because the subconscious mind is controlling about 95% of what we do. And 60% of that 90% that we know is negative. So that means that we have an overwhelming, I guess, proclivity toward negativity. So you are working against this program. And I didn't realize how many years I had spent in low key fight or flight
Uh-huh.
because that's what being a prosecutor is. I mean, you're constantly like, if I wasn't in trial trying cases, I was having to deal with so many crazy things, the politics of it, talking to the press, doing all of these things, going and watching. I mean, the trauma from going and watching a survivor of sexual assault do a forensic interview or having to be at an autopsy. Nobody prepares you for
Right.
seeing those things. And I had completely neglected the cumulative stress that I was under that was keeping me in what I became acclimated to, that was fight or flight. So we know, I mean, this is not even in dispute. I don't have to be a medical doctor to be able to say this. Anybody can go out there and find this information out. High cortisol will suppress your fertility. And we know this. There's over 39 published peer-reviewed studies to demonstrate that the mind-body connection has an impact on pregnancy rates. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
Yet women are not empowered with this. I remember being at that teaching hospital that I was getting treatment and being told by one of the instructors, a physician that was an instructor and an expert at reproductive endocrinology, being told that my 60 to 80-hour work weeks would have nothing to do with my ability to get pregnant. And I'm grateful for having had that experience. So it's not like I'm saying this with bitterness. I'm saying this with gratitude because what that showed me is they don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because that little boy, you can't really see him in the background. That's my son. So he's 8 years old. And when I was pregnant with him, because like we found out and I was like I freaked out. I'm like, holy cow, I made myself a promise that that I was going to hold out for him. I was never going to give up for him, give up on him. I was going to have him and I was going to believe for him. And within that year, boom, pregnant naturally. So technically, Jamie, I was more fertile in my 40s naturally than I was in my 30s with treatment.
I love that. And tell us like what it was like. Were you just late on your cycle, so you took a test? What happened?
Yeah, well, I was late on my cycle and and I had been on thyroid medication for some time because during obviously when you do fertility treatment. When you finally get to the right doctor, they'll do a full panel.
Uh-huh.
And, a full panel, ladies, not just TSH. They'll do the full panel and check you for Hashimoto's and all this other stuff. And so, nothing really changed. I had been taking thyroid medication. I wasn't doing anything special. My husband and I had just come home. This was part of our year of yes. Okay. There's Shonda Rhimes wrote an amazing book called The Year of Yes. But from October 2015 to October 2016, we had said all these yeses, and we had taken this whirlwind European vacation. We were in France, we were in Italy, we were saying yes to everything. I was wearing high heels on cobblestone. I was drinking champagne. I was eating raw cheese, Jamie. I was doing all the things the quote unquote experts will tell you not to do.
Wow.
And I got pregnant. And I, when we went to the ultrasound to see him, they said, "Oh, how old are you?" And they're like, "Oh, this is a high risk pregnancy
Uh-huh.
because you're well into your 40s, and you need to see a high risk specialist." I said, "Nope, my baby's fine. You have no idea what it took for him to get here." And I beat back all of those fears, and it's some of the stuff that I teach in my Fearless Pregnancy book. You'll read it. And I just said, nope, this baby's meant for me. The desire for him has never gone away. He is meant for me. And, there were so many times they tried to scare me, oh, we should do a C-section. We should hurry up and get this baby out. I said, nope, this baby is coming when he's ready. And I didn't allow anybody, like even at the 19-week ultrasound, the body scan that they do, they said, "Oh, we see a spot on his liver." I said, "Nope, my baby is fine." They said, "Come back in a week. We're going to have the radiologist or, whoever come in and read this a second scan." I said, "All right, I'm going to come back, but my baby is fine." And they scanned him. The doctor said, "Oh, yeah, I see a little spot here." I said, "Doc, in the 40 years that you say that you have been practicing medicine, has any baby with that kind of a spot ever had a problem with their liver?" He said, "No." I said, "Thank you." And I left. And
Uh-huh.
and so what I'm getting to here, Jamie, is this process of becoming a mom isn't just about getting pregnant. It's about staying pregnant, but it's also about your transformation as a woman to be an amazing mom. Because I realized, having lived under so much fear, doubt, negativity, shame, comparison on my journey, that once my son was in my body and once he had made his presence known to me, I was going to protect him from the jump. And he was born naturally. I had him vaginally, even though they tried to scare me into having a C-section. I said no. They said he needs to be born at 39 weeks. I said no. We're going to let him go a little longer, and because he's going to come when he's ready. And they said, "But you're older, your placenta or your cord could calcify." I said, "Do you see any evidence of that?" "No." "Okay, I'll see you. I'll see you
Uh-huh.
when I'm ready." And I did end up letting them induce me a little bit early. And because I think my fluid was just a teeny bit down, I said, "Okay, now you're providing me with some evidence upon which I can make a great informed choice for myself."
Mhm.
And I went in, I had him. He was perfect. He was perfect,
Ugh.
Jamie. And like when I held him for the first time, it was like, "You're home."
Ugh.
And it taught me so much. And this transformation, like I really encourage the women listening, whether you're trying to conceive or you are pregnant, start acting like mom now. Don't wait. Don't wait, because you would never let somebody run up and scare your kid on the street, right? Like you'd never let
Right.
somebody do that. Like you're going to protect your kids now. And I don't want this to come off as like it's us against them. I don't feel that. I think that we can be collaborative in our approach. So whether somebody's trying to conceive, find a team, ladies, that believes in you. Find a team that believes in you. Don't allow people to scare you with statistics. Statistics, most of those statistics are 40 to 50 years old, and they didn't include you. So believe in yourself. I mean, having seen crazy things, like I have women coming into my coaching practice that had a less than 1% chance of conceiving by any means, get pregnant naturally because of who they allowed themselves to become.
Yeah.
They allowed themselves to believe. In fact, we're filming for my documentary that's coming out in 2026. We just visited some clients in North Carolina, New York, and Montreal. Every single one of those women was told scary things, but they're holding babies today because of what they chose to believe.
Yeah.
That's the power. So, whether you're pregnant, trying to conceive, like start taking a look at the story and the paradigm that you're living by in your mind and understand that you are an amazing, strong woman who has done amazing things in her life. You deserve to be happy and you deserve to have your family. So, whatever it is, your fertility journey or your pregnancy journey, walk today from here on out, from the moment you listen to this, moving forward, walk this journey that you're on as if this was meant for you and that you know how the story ends with your healthy, happy baby.
I love that. Now, you kind of said from the beginning, you always said him. Did you always believe that he was going to be a boy?
I had a feeling, and I can't explain why, other than knowing that I was going to be the mother of a son, just because of my personality. And I just, it felt correct to me. Like, I don't know why. In fact, I have to tell you a funny little story, super quick. He named himself. My son's name is
What?
Asher. Yeah, totally
Tell us.
named him. Yeah. So I was about 6 months pregnant and I was brushing my teeth, getting ready for bed. And all of a sudden, the name Asher popped into my head. And I'm like, Asher? Is that even a name? And I Googled it and I said, oh, it's Hebrew for happy and blessed. I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
he just named himself. I mean, as a woman who believes wholeheartedly in the power of the mind body connection and that our mind is everything, he's in my body. We're in the same closed system. He's communicating to me. And, by that point, he was already kicking and doing his thing. And I was like, okay, hey, sweetheart, your name is Asher. And I went and told my husband, I said, his name is Asher. And my husband said, okay. And that was it. From that moment on, he was
Oh,
Asher.
wow. That's beautiful. Well, how was your pregnancy?
It was it was effortless.
Oh my
Jamie,
gosh.
was effortless. I didn't even, I had no symptoms. It was
Wow.
funny because like my mom knew I was pregnant before I did because she's like, she was, I guess I was wearing a top that was like, I don't typically wear V-neck tops, but I guess I was wearing some lower cut top. She's like, did you change your bra? And I'm like, no, and she's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, checking around, I'm like, wow, okay, maybe something is different. So yeah, so it was kind of funny, like how everything turned out that way. But other than having sore breasts and being like asleep a lot, like in the middle of the
Uh-huh.
day needing a nap, I had no symptoms. It was
Wow.
effortless. And like it wasn't until probably a month before I had him that my ankle started swelling.
Oh my gosh.
And that was it. I mean, I had even taken, they told me I was borderline with gestational diabetes. And I said, I'm not taking that medication. My son and I are going to walk around. So I completely beat that too. I was like, I'm not taking any medication. I'm just going to eat well and we're going to walk and we're going to enjoy walks together. Before he's walking for himself, he will walk with me. And that's just what we did.
That's
So it
awesome.
was easy. It
Yeah.
was easy. I didn't even have to change I think I was so looking forward to having pregnancy jeans. I was so delighted about that. I'm like, I get to, gonna buy myself a cute pair of designer jeans that are with a pregnancy band. And it was one of the happiest times in my life. So, and I'm 51 now. So I'm like, oh, I know that if I wanted another baby, I would have one. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, I know if I could call him in before, I know I could call another one in. But I'm like, now my work and my ladies and my books and my documentary, those are my babies now.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
Well, tell us your your birth was naturally. How
Yes.
how was recovery afterwards?
It was really easy. I didn't have much tearing. I had a great doula. I had done something really wise and I had hired a doula to come in with me. And it was great. It was definitely the most pain I've ever experienced in my life. So I had him vaginally, and then I did opt for me to have a epidural at 6 centimeters. So I had gone far, and I guess my blood pressure was going a little haywire at the time. So I did have some support with some of that. But everything was it was pretty smooth. And afterward, it was good. Nobody told me that when you left the hospital, you would still look 6 months pregnant. But I was like, oh, it was great. It was great. The only complication that we had was he was born both lip-tied and tongue-tied.
Uh-huh.
So breastfeeding was not easy.
Yeah.
And frankly, was an utter disaster. But luckily, I had done a lot of research before. I was one of the psycho moms that was ordering formula from Europe
Uh-huh.
because it was the cleanest. It was organic, clean, grass-fed, didn't have any maltodextrin in it. So I just said, okay, if I can't, in the off chance that I can't feed him myself, I want to be very conscious so that I'm feeding the best quality, formula that I could. So we did a combination of, because he wasn't latching, formula and breastfeeding. And probably after about a month or two, my milk was like, see ya.
Ugh.
So we gave him breast milk for as long as we could, as much
Uh-huh.
as we could, and then he was on formula.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah. And I'm like, at that point, I learned enough about loving yourself to be like, look, I don't need to get a gold medal in pain tolerance. I
Sure.
also don't need a gold medal in breastfeeding. I think women need to give themselves a break, do the best that you can, and and trust that your baby knows you're doing your best. And that's all any of us can do.
Yeah. And mentally, how was your postpartum?
There were a few times when I was certainly feeling it. I was certainly feeling it, but you know, I had one of the things that kept me kind of even keel, I would say, was consistently telling myself, this is the life that I chose. This is what I wanted. Sometimes I want to cry. Sometimes I want to scream. Sometimes I'm like looking down at him and like not sure what to do or who is this baby, like, and I was like, nope, I'm going back into the moment that I knew I was going to be his mom. I'm choosing this and I'm going to figure a way through it. And that settled down probably after a couple weeks. And then I was back and back to feeling like myself. And, because it's also an identity shift, Jamie.
Yeah.
Like it's an identity shift from being the woman struggling with fertility to the woman that's pregnant to the woman that's a mom.
Yeah. It
Like
happens
all of that
fast.
happens. Yeah, I mean, the gap between being pregnant and becoming a mom is very small compared
Yeah.
to many of our fertility journeys that could be years, sometimes decades.
Yeah.
And so, having worked on my mindset and having been a faithful student of it, and then leaning into my own faith really brought me to a place where I was able to stay conscious. We talked earlier about the conscious mind, the subconscious mind. The more you can stay conscious of what's going on in your own stories and your own negativity and all this other stuff, and having compassion for yourself, then you can navigate this, I think, a little more elegantly, not perfectly, but
Sure.
elegantly enough to be able to say, this is all part of the deal. I signed up to be this baby's mom, and I might be confused right now. I may feel very down right now, but I'm going to ask for what I need. And that's another thing I really encourage women, do not hesitate to have support when your baby comes. Like, and sometimes having friends and family, those aren't the right people. Sometimes you want professionals to come in that you don't have any baggage with, because then that way you can say, I'm paying this person to do exactly what I asked them to do. And there's no like old family story of me being greedy or being a diva. Like that professional is there to do what you ask them to do. And sometimes, I didn't ask my family to come in, not because I don't love them, but because I've been like 40 freaking years since my mom had held a baby, like she
Right.
doesn't remember. And like, so I'm like, okay, let me get some, crunchy patchouli smelling doulas in here to help me. That's what I wanted, and so it was awesome. And to answer your question, it definitely showed me new things about myself, is what I would say. And I think if women can keep their mind open about that, that they're at every stage, there's going to be new facets of myself that I'm going to find, then you can have compassion and joy in the process.
I love that. Now, is there anything else you want to go over with your pregnancy or birth or anything?
I would really encourage women to have the time of their lives when they're pregnant. Like my second trimester, I mean, as I had said earlier, I had an easy pregnancy, and I think that we can all like embrace whatever shows up during our pregnancy with some compassion and grace. But I thought that my second trimester was one of the most energetic times of my life. I was extremely creative, and it was a blossoming of my own femininity that I'm really grateful for having experienced. And so I would really encourage women like, look, it doesn't matter. Like, allow yourself to enjoy your pregnancy. People may try to scare you about this or that, but trust that you have everything inside of you to get to where you need to go in this pregnancy, and make a decision you're going to enjoy it.
What has been your biggest challenge being pregnant over 40?
Other people's perceptions. And it was crazy because I'm like, I am healthy. Like, I'm 51. Do I look 51? No.
Definitely
And
not.
like, and I'm like, why? Why do all these people want to smear their fear all over me? Like, I have nothing to be afraid of. Like, and I'm certainly not going to have my son swimming in cortisol, right? It's like, I'm not going to allow all that fear and negativity. So I really paid attention, Jamie, to who I surrounded myself with. Once I start, because everyone wants to tell you their scary birth
Oh,
story.
they
People
do.
want to people want to tell you about their uncles, sisters, friends, niece who had some terrifying experience. It's like, I was like, shut up, stay away from me. I don't want to take any of that on. Like, because my son can hear you. The baby can hear her by 16 weeks. And then, but I also believe, on a spiritual basis, they can hear you way before then. So I was constantly affirming that my baby is safe. We're going to be together. This is amazing. And I wasn't taking on anyone's perceptions. I mean, that's how I kind of sailed through a lot of things that could have been crisis in my pregnancy, with the 19-week ultrasound and then the gestational diabetes being borderline for that. I'm like, nah, I'm not taking any of that on. I don't believe for any of that. And we just created a different reality. So I
I
encourage
love
other
that.
women to like take control of that as well.
Yes, I love that so much. Is there anything you'd recommend that would help prepare someone for pregnancy and birth?
Yes. So I'm a strong believer, as we've probably discussed multiple times at this point, of mindset. So when somebody is preparing for pregnancy, I really encourage them, whether they're on a fertility, like an extended fertility journey, or they're just now starting to try in their 40s, is you've got to, number one, get clear about what you want. And I don't mean just that you want a baby. I want you to get very clear about how you want to do this. Because just as we were talking about a few moments ago, everyone's got an opinion. But if you aren't clear on yours, you are going to be open to being manipulated, shamed, pushed into something that you may not want to do. Like, I was only trying naturally for 6 months before I was in IVF, and nobody tried to stop me. Nobody had the presence of mind to say, lady, we know how badly you want this baby. Let's slow this train down a little bit and look at some other things, right? I'm not blaming anybody, but learn from my experience. You don't have to be afraid. I mean, I've got clients left and right getting pregnant naturally at 45, 47, 50. Okay. It is possible, but you have to know what you want. Okay. Number one, and see it the whole way through. What do you want, not just from getting pregnant? Like, how do you want to be in your pregnancy? How do you want to be as a mom? Really map that out. You don't have to have it perfectly, but have a vision in your mind. So when that vision is in your mind, you can hold it and continuously impress upon it, with your subconscious mind. Now, the second thing is not only know what you want, you have to be willing to ask for it. And I think that because so many women that are over 40 wanting to have babies are met with lectures and shame and aren't when are you going to give up on this? Don't you think you're too old? Like, be willing to ask for what you want. No
Definitely.
shame in your game. Like, at the end of the day, everyone else gets to go home, Jamie. Everyone is going home and probably to their children. So anyone that would shame you or judge you for wanting to have a baby in their 40s doesn't know what they're talking about. And chances are they gave up on their dream decades ago. So they're not exactly the person you want to be listening to anyway. Just like
Exactly.
they say, don't get financial advice from someone who's broke, right? Listen to other people who have created the kind of success that you desire. And then the third thing in preparing for pregnancy and during pregnancy is have fun. Have fun. It's the intuitive move that most people forget.
Yeah.
Let yourself have fun. You are having a baby. You're not having a root canal. Make this about joy. And the more joy that you can bring into your life, even at a time when it may seem frightening or it may seem like it will never happen, there is a thing called vitamin J, and that's joy. And that will take you so much farther than, I mean, I'm living proof than any treatment, diet, lotion, potion. Like, go have fun, be enjoy, and just watch what comes in.
Now, what advice would you give yourself when you were pregnant if you could go back?
I would say go out on more dates.
Oh,
It's funny because, like, I was working a lot when I was pregnant, and my husband and I are very close. We have such an incredible relationship. We're fun, adventurous people. But I think I just got so, at times, so wrapped up in my work and just so loving being pregnant that I didn't go out much. And I'm like, you know what? I would have worn more of my pregnancy outfits, my pregnancy dresses, and like I think I would have gone out more and just taken that bump on parade like a little bit more because like it's like I like at times I'm like, man, I love being pregnant so much that I wish I was more in the present. So
hmm,
I would say is be present with your pregnancy.
I love that. Now, is there anything else you want to say to our listeners, or do you want to get into your coaching program and tell us about that?
Yeah, so I would just encourage women, look, here's the thing. You're gonna hear a lot of things from a lot of people. And when I broke down those three things to keep aware of in preparation for being pregnant and then during your pregnancy, is this journey is coming into your life for a reason. It's such a wonderful time to reevaluate what's this new identity I'm stepping into? Who do I want to be now? And to really evaluate what's working for you and what's not working for you in your life so that you can emerge from this chapter with a new sense of vision, a new sense of what it is that you want and who you want to be. Because I think a lot of women, especially when we're on this journey for an extended period of time, we're just trying to get to baby, that we don't really think beyond that. And I think thinking beyond that gives us the kind of stamina, gives us the kind of vision that will allow us to keep going even when things get crazy
Uh-huh.
on this journey. So I really encourage women to just take a step back and get out of the immediacy of the crisis and take like a 36,000 foot view of your life and really continue to ask that really intimate question of what it is that they want. And that's actually something that when I'm working with clients, because I work mostly with professional women, so physicians, lawyers, teachers, nurses, engineers, scientists, entrepreneurs, and you know, after they've been trying for so long, they've lost themselves. So one of the key things that we do is bring them back to themselves first, because we get into patterns, Jamie, that we don't even recognize that we're doing it. We get into lack, scarcity, fear, doubt, negativity, comparison, all of these things. So, what we do in my work is really break those patterns and construct new ones so that your mind and your body get recalibrated and they're pointed in the direction of fertility success. And I believe any woman that sincerely wants to have a baby is going to. In 11 years of doing this work, the only women that I see that do not get to the end of their fertility journey with a baby are the ones that gave up.
Uh,
So you've got to be the woman that says, I'm not giving up on myself, I'm not giving up on my baby, and I'm not giving up on my body, whatever. And like, look, and that comes in many different forms, right? I've worked with women who have welcomed their children through the support of an amazing angel of a surrogate, or women who have used donor eggs. Like it's all beautiful. It's all like, look, are you all in or are you out?
right.
And when you're all in, the judgment drops away, the scales drop from your eyes, and you're able to see things that you hadn't seen before. But all of that starts up here. And women often think, oh, when I'm pregnant, there's going to be a marching band that comes to my house, all my problems go away. And it's like, nope, that's just when the real game starts. Because this isn't just about getting pregnant, it's about staying pregnant and having a healthy, happy pregnancy. And your mind is critical to all of that. So that's what we do. And that's what I've written 4 books about. And we have a 5th coming out. And my first book has been translated into Russian and now Spanish. So I'm on a mission to help 100,000 women have 100,000 babies. And we are well on our way. So it's a very exciting thing. And I'm delighted that I was able to turn my pain into purpose and help women finally get and stay pregnant.
I
So
love that. And how can someone get in touch with you and work with you?
yeah, so one of the things that we always recommend is to check out my podcast, the Fearlessly Fertile podcast. We have over 340 episodes out now, and it's a wonderful way for them to get a taste of what that's like. Because I am 10 years in the courtroom will make you very salty. And so they get the unedited version of me on there speaking very directly about the kind of lessons that I wish somebody taught me when I was living my fertility journey, and then things that I wish somebody told me about being pregnant, and then lessons from later on. And we have loads of guest experts and my what I call my miracle mamas on, so that one of the ways that we learn is through story, which you're
Uh,
doing here, which I think is really cool. And so there's loads of women who have come through my programs and have made the seemingly impossible possible. And it's through those podcast episodes, we're on YouTube as well, that they can see through other women what's possible for them. So I would encourage listeners to go to the Fearlessly Fertile podcast or check out. I'm very active on Instagram at Rosanne Austin Fertility on Instagram, or check out my website, which is www.frommaybe2baby.com, and that's TO. So going from maybe to baby. So that's how people can get a hold of us, check out our materials. My books are on Amazon. So there's loads of ways for women to get familiar with this work and to get to know who we are.
awesome. Well, Rosanne, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story.
Yeah, well, it's such an honor to have spent this time with you, Jamie, and to go back down memory lane of my own pregnancy. And I'm like, when I'm done here, I'm just going to go hug my son a little bit harder. And I really do wish all of your listeners a wonderful pregnancy and the ability to find in themselves a level of fearlessness that will make this chapter in their lives just so incredible. So I wish you the best.